This right here is the brand new Sony FX3 Mini. I mean, technically it's not called the FX3 Mini, it's called the Sony ZV-E1, but in a lot of ways, it's an FX3 Mini. See, when the FX3 came out, it was basically an A7S III in a different body. They took off the EVF, they changed the body format, they gave you a top handle, and they changed some of the settings to seem or lean more cinematic over photography. But capability-wise, spec-wise, the FX3 is an A7S III in a different body. Same full frame 12.1 megapixel 4K 422 10-bit capable sensor, so same guts but new body. But capability-wise, FX3 and A7S III, same camera, and now they're kind of doing it again with the FX3, but putting it inside of a ZV body. Oh, and the FX3 Mini, or ZV-E1, it is almost half of the price from the FX3. Same sensor, same bitrate, same dynamic range, almost half the price. Now, to be fair to the A7S III and FX3, at launch, the ZV-E1 can only go up to 4K 60, which, again, same sensor, same processor. Why can it not go to 4K 120? They say that they will release 4K 120 as a firmware update in June or later. And they're not saying why, but it seems to be because of overheating. Gerald Undone already released his very technical, super in-depth video, and he was seen on this camera at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 42 to 110 minutes of record time at 4K 60 before it overheated. In 4K 24, it doesn't look like there's overheating issues, but if you can only get 42 minutes in really good weather without direct sunlight at 4K 60, at 4K 120 with any amount of sunlight or any amount of heat, I can't imagine that you will be getting much time. Now, cameras do get better with firmware updates. Firmware can help alleviate overheating issues, which is why they're saying that come June, they should have firmware available for this camera so that you can shoot 4K 120. Maybe you get 10, 15 minutes of record time at 4K 120 before it overheats, or if you're in conditions like this, which it's 55 degrees out in San Diego, you'd probably see longer. Right now at 55 degrees, I'm having a hard time getting this thing to overheat, even at 4K 60. But again, people will be shooting their cameras in warmer conditions, in direct sunlight. And yeah, you can't be having a camera overheat in 5-10 minutes. Before I get to why this camera is so impressive though, let's talk about a few more reasons why it is half the price of the FX3, even though it can shoot the exact same footage, same bitrate, same everything. First up is ports on here. On here, we only have one SD card slot. There's no CF Express Type A cards in there, no dual slot recording, so only one SD card slot on there. And then as for ports down here, instead of a full HDMI, we have that micro HDMI. I'm not a big fan of micro HDMIs only because the cable is a little more fragile. Like if you bump it, if you knock it, you're probably gonna break it. But I don't think, again, for who this camera is aimed for, I don't think that those people are using the full HDMI anyway. Because this camera is for sure geared more towards creators, more towards solo creators like myself, more towards the YouTubers and the Instagrammers and the TikTokers who want professional quality, but ease of use. That's a great way to say it. Professional quality camera, ease of use. Then also on the list of reasons of why this is half the price as the FX3 is that body. On here, it feels good. Like it doesn't feel terrible. The grip feels good, but it is more plasticky. It's a lighter weight plastic body, and yeah, it doesn't have that same professional feel of the A7S III or FX3. So same guts, but a plastic body. Okay, so what are the features though that I said that the ZV-E1 has that the FX3, the camera that's almost twice as much, does not have? And that's where the new AI chip comes in and some very clever software tricks. First up is a new level of stabilization called dynamic stabilization. And stabilization is obviously massive for creators doing a lot of walking around like this, walking with your vlog rig. And this is standard stabilization. I'll walk a little faster. This is kind of that shakier footage that you see. Let's switch to active, but I also want you to watch the crop in active stabilization. And now this is active stabilization. As you can see, it has cropped in a little bit. This is still 16 millimeters on this camera, but quite a bit more stable and just walking. I'm not even really trying to stabilize the camera with my arm, just kind of holding it out, letting the camera do the work. And this here is dynamic stabilization. They say that you almost don't need a gimbal. You can see it is very cropped in compared to active or standard, but it is shockingly smooth. I'm just watching the screen right now and that is shockingly smooth. I'm not trying at all. And I would say while there's always gonna be a place for a gimbal, it's pretty close. Next up, we have something called framing stabilizer. And you can either do center framing or you can actually change your framing. Maybe you're doing thirds. But what this is gonna do is, let's say you were doing a shot where you were trying to, either you were on a gimbal and you were trying to kind of rotate around something, or you were really trying to keep somebody center framed as you moved with them. This is gonna take that same large sensor like this, we're gonna crop in a little bit, and now even if your subject moves off, we're gonna move that box over to compensate so that the subject always stays centered. Again, you can, instead of centered, you could choose, hey, I want my subject to always be on this third line, stay there, and no matter how you move your camera, if you're off a little bit, it's gonna compensate and make sure that they stay perfectly framed up. And we also have something called auto framing that solo creators are going to love. Essentially what you do is take your camera, put it on a tripod, turn on auto framing and set it to either small, medium, or large crop. That's gonna determine how much of a crop, how much is it gonna zoom in to track you, and then you can move around the frame. You can move back and forth, and it's gonna constantly track you back and forth. And as it does that, it kind of looks like someone else is filming you. Okay, this is the auto reframing in medium crop. Now, I haven't started tracking yet, so it's not doing it yet. So you can see this is the full frame. This is what the camera sees, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit tracking on myself by just tapping myself on the screen. Boom, now it's tracking me, and now it zooms in. Now the camera is gonna track me back and forth. So as I move over here a little bit, maybe I'm talking to the camera about something, I'm explaining something to you guys, it kind of looks like there's someone filming me. Like I have somebody else that came out here and they're filming for me, and this reframed image, that's what gets recorded to the SD card. Now, if you wanted the full frame shot as well, because on the screen here, I can see the full frame still, and then I can see that box chopped in. If you want that full frame, you can hook up an external recorder, send the full frame image out to the external recorder, and this tighter box is what's gonna be recorded to the SD card. But again, you can see it does a decent job. Like this kind of does sell the effect that somebody else is filming for you. Like you hired a buddy and he came out, he was helping you film your video for YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. It's a pretty neat feature. I think that's gonna be the most attractive feature for solo creators in this camera is auto track. Because like if I move around, my camera is just on a tripod right now. This is the A7S III. So as I move around, nothing happens. Then we also have features like product showcase, skin smoothing, and a new cinematic mode that automatically puts black bars on top and bottom, and you can choose from different pre-baked presets. I don't think anyone should use that, but I think there will definitely be people that'll be like, hey, that looks very cool. This looks cinematic. Some people are gonna like it. Okay, lastly, let's talk about the microphone on top. They did bring that same ZV-3 capsule microphone onto the top, so you kind of got that large grate on top, but a really cool new software feature with it. Put this little fuzzy wind muff back on there. So with that 3 capsule microphone, you can either choose to record forward, so it's really just gonna focus on what's in front of the camera, backwards so that you only hear what's behind the camera, or a new auto mode so that whether you're behind the camera talking like this, as soon as it sees somebody and that person starts talking, it's gonna flip to the front microphone to pick them up and still continue picking you up back here. So it's gonna automatically detect where that audio is coming from and decide which direction to focus on. And I would say that the microphone in this camera, it's the best I've seen from the ZV lineup and the best by far microphone that I've seen built into a camera. Now, I would still run an external mic on this. I just think that the quality of an external mic, being able to focus on my voice like this, it's always gonna be better. But it is nice to know that in a pinch, you can just use this, throw this little fuzzy bit on top to reduce wind noise and get pretty solid audio just with the FX3 Mini, their ZV-E1. Okay, with all that said, who is the ZV-E1 for? Who is it designed for? Clearly, they are aiming at content creators, solo creators on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, people that are filming themselves that, again, want very high quality professional results, but but just kind of want it to be easy. They want some of those more prosumer features that make the recording process simple. And for those purposes, I honestly think they did a fantastic job. I also think that this camera is for someone that has an A7S III or FX3 as their main camera, and maybe they want to pick up a B camera for a smoking deal. Same sensor, same exact footage. If you put this footage next to the A7S III, you cannot tell the difference. I'm super curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this camera though. Again, essentially an A7S III or FX3 guts, same capabilities, new, more plasticky body, cool built-in microphone, some neat prosumer tracking features, but seems pretty cool. Again, half the price of an FX3, that's compelling. I only have this camera for one more day and I have to give it back to Sony, so I'm gonna go shoot this camera. I'll see you guys. Here is auto reframe with small crop on, which means it's not gonna crop in so much, but it's gonna give me head to toe framing. So it's gonna watch me as I move over here and track me a little bit as I move over here and track me over here. It looks like someone else is operating the camera for me.